If you're traveling across America, you might, in the heat of the late morning, at the edge of a large city or an extensive forest, come across a large, hand-painted sign. It will only be there if you aren't in a hurry. You will only notice it if you have no place in particular you need to be. The sign features one word, and no matter your history with the type of entertainment it advertises, you will be intrigued. If you're lucky, you'll continue on, thinking a sign that old couldn't refer to something that still exists. Unfortunately, it still does, but only if you aren't looking for it. You are following a sign marked Zoo.
Episode 9, Alaskan Matters.
No, you have to repeat this. I'm going to record it. Start over, Titanium.
Okay, so it started after I watched some documentary and was immediately like, okay, well, I have to meet this thing. If it's a demon, cool. And if it's just another cryptid, even cooler, right?
And you just took off to Texas, just like that?
Oh yeah, like that night. I packed up the van, called up a couple people who I thought might be interested, but they weren't, and took off within like 2 hours.
What was your plan when you got there, though?
I don't think that I actually had much of a plan at first, but I figured West Virginia to Texas was a long enough drive to make one.
Okay, so what happened when you got there?
Well, it was after dark when I got there, and I didn't have, like, a planned place to stay, and I wanted to check the bridge out as quickly as possible. I was still running on the high of being impulsive, you know? I decided that I was going to spend the night at the bridge, but, like, of course, it's a major attraction for local teenagers, and also probably illegal as hell to sleep on. So I climbed down below it, and since the water was low, there was a perfect place to at least pitch a tent.
Whoa, are you telling me that you camped out under a spooky bridge?
Well, yeah. That's not the interesting part, though, because...
No, listen, Titanium, you slept under a bridge, and if any kids did wander through, hearing you do something under that very haunted bridge would have scared the hell out of them. You became the bridge troll there to scare off the goat man.
I guess you're right. I was just too exhausted to really think about much beyond setting up a tent and getting a little bit of sleep before I started really exploring.
Makes sense, I guess. Did anything happen that night?
Yeah, it was a few hours later. I had been dozing on and off for a little while when I heard hooves on the bridge above me. Like, I didn't think anything would actually happen, so naturally I quietly crept out of my tent, or at least I thought I was being quiet. I don't actually know because my heart pounding was the only thing I could really hear. Anyway, I crept out and crawled up the bank with my camera and hunkered down by the side of the bridge to see if I could see anything.
And?
And nothing. There was nothing on the bridge at all. I was naturally pretty disappointed, but I headed back down toward my tent, and right as I got out of sight of the bridge, the clomping started again. So I darted back up immediately, and there he was, standing at the other end of the bridge, eyes gleaming in my flashlight in all his 6-foot-tall glory. And I just sort of froze in my tracks. I realized I had made a huge error. I hadn't planned at all what I would do if I actually spotted him.
So what did you do?
I waved? Jesus, McKayla, I waved. You know, that awkward arm half up kind of wave people do? I did that.
Oh no. Did he, laugh at you?
Did you just ask? No, he didn't laugh at me. I mean, it would be justified, but no. He started walking toward me, which I'm, of course, like, oh, excellent. The creepy cryptid that might be a demon is coming over here to either rip my throat out or chat me up, and I don't know which. Keep in mind, this was back when I was definitely way more afraid of the unknown.
Which you're not afraid at all now.
Not really. Once you've encountered enough weird shit, you just kind of start to accept it and move on. It's part of the world, and yeah, some things might be willing to tear you to shreds just for existing, but most really probably won't.
I wish I was that comfortable with this stuff.
Just keep going and you will be. Trust me, if you were brave enough to get this far, then you're probably brave enough to stare down Goatman.
If you say so.
I do. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, so the Goatman was rapidly advancing on me, and I was really wondering if I was about to die, but he just came up and stared at me. So, of course, I stepped a little bit closer to him and introduced myself, and then I asked, hey, what's with the bridge?
Of course. Did he respond?
No, he didn't talk at all. Just looked at me, which was very nerve-wracking, as I'm sure you can imagine. I didn't move a muscle. Eventually, he scampered off into the woods. I did consider following him, but thought it might be a bad idea.
And that's it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I just wanted confirmation that he was real and to see what he was up close.
So what do you think he was?
I don't know. There are a lot of stories, you know? There is, of course, the story of what actually happened at that bridge to a man that they called the Goat Man before he was murdered there, but he wasn't a literal half-goat entity. He was just singled out because he wasn't white, but he was successful.
Oh yes, that old classic, of course.
Yeah. And this thing wasn't that. He wasn't a ghost or anything. He was very real. Overall, extremely corporeal.
Any guesses?
I've thought it over and done some research. I have a theory, but it's really out there.
I just listened to you tell me about how you encountered a goat man, and I believed you the whole time. This whole situation is pretty out there, so why don't you just try me?
You asked for it. So, the man killed on that bridge was a goat farmer, and from what I can find, actually pretty well loved by most people. It was just the clan that had an issue with him. Like, he was known for being honest, dependable, kind, all around a good guy, right?
Sounds like it.
Okay, so what if this creature was born to one of his goats, and he kind of just quietly took care of it? I mean, it's not that wild to believe that a good person, when faced with a creature like this, would treat it with kindness, but also would try to keep that shit pretty quiet.
Unless you wanted all the locals to show up with pitchforks and torches, sure.
Exactly. So, he takes care of this thing, lets it live as peacefully as possible. Whether or not it actually has any supernatural abilities is anybody's guess, but it certainly is outside the norm. So after the goat farmer, Oscar was his name, by the way, Oscar Washburn, after Oscar gets killed, this thing hangs around in the woods, guards the bridge, maybe even is out for vengeance, or just wants to make sure the kind of people that killed Oscar won't come back. Maybe it just wants to I don't know, keep that place from getting desecrated or damaged since it's where his caretaker met his end. Maybe it's a whole respect thing.
You're right. That's pretty out there.
I told ya.
You did, but I don't dislike the idea.
You don't.
No, I actually think it's kind of sweet. You know, this guy tends to this creature and raises it even. Then, after Oscar gets killed, the creature he cared for while he was alive kind of has his back in his death the best it can. I like the narrative.
Yeah, it's a nice thought. I like to think the best of the things I meet. They're weird, sure. They sometimes have interesting abilities or they just look different from other animals that we know about. But they're just trying to exist the best they can, you know? They're just like us in that way.
I had never thought of it like that, really. I've been so focused on this red-eyed menace and finding out what's going on with the zoo, I had never given much thought to the things being kept in there other than they're weird.
It's understandable. I want to know too. I mean, it's one of the Enigma Collective's biggest questions, but after years of work, we're not nearly as close as you've gotten.
I've had access to a lot of resources.
Yeah, I'll say. I have to go for now, but keep me posted on what you find, and if I look into anything on my end, I'll let you know.
Of course. And Titanium. If you impulsively decide to travel across the country to track down any more cryptids, give me a call, okay?
Okay. For sure. I'll talk to you later.
Oh, I just got something from Chicago. I didn't send any requests to the field office there, and I don't know an agent border. Kespar, heard you were looking into cases about weird animals. Thought you might get a kick out of this. This one isn't so much a file as it is a story from one of the boys in the Chicago field office. Agent Jonathan Dubois was visiting his sister Vanessa in the summer of 2004 in their hometown of Harper's Ferry in Alamaki County, Iowa. They had just finished dinner, a slightly dry chicken a la king by his own account, when there was a hurried knock at the door. It being 8:30 in a town where they rolled up the sidewalks at dark, Agent Dubois was a bit surprised at the noise, but his sister was nonplussed. She was, after all, the only veterinarian in a small town, and the area did raise a lot of livestock. She told him it was probably a calving cow or a wounded horse she'd need to tend to, and if he was interested, he could go with her. She went downstairs to find an absolutely panicked college-aged girl, screaming almost incoherently about hitting an animal on the road. Dr. Dubois calmed her down and was able to figure out that the girl had hit what she thought was a dog in the road, and she and her friend had been able to lift it into the backseat of her Toyota Camry, and what the fuck is it about Toyota Camrys and the supernatural? She instructed the girl to drive up alongside the house to the attached garage, and she'd meet her there. The garage, which had been converted into a home animal clinic, was all prepared for any kind of emergency treatment needed for local dogs or cats, and, on most occasions, any animal in the county that would be brought in. When she opened the door, Jonathan helped her with the car to carry the creature in. The creature was, surprisingly, not a dog. That's not surprising at all. It's never a dog. Never is a dog. Opening the car's back door revealed, with one long bleat, that the beast was, in fact, a sheep, flailing about in the back seat, its head cradled in the lap of a rather terrified teen girl. As Jonathan hoisted the creature up and carried it to a metal table in the clinic, he first noticed that the back seat was covered in a thick green goo. Dr. Dubois, upon hearing the noise, changed her method of treatment, readied a sedative, and strapped the creature to the table. When the animal put up a fight, the teen girl that was in the back seat displayed a surprising amount of upper body strength and wrestled the thing into position. The ewe was, at first glance, unremarkable, and the wound was a broken leg and probably some cracked ribs, the kind you'd expect with a mid-speed collision with a car. As Dr. Dubois prepared to take an x-ray to check the fracture, she was perhaps too distracted by the panicking girls begging her, and God, and Beyoncé, and anyone who would listen to save the poor creature to notice that the animal wasn't as commonplace as she originally thought. She turned to her brother and asked him if he'd noticed the texture of the wool seemed strange. It was less dense and felt closer to unrefined cotton than wool. He asked her if she noticed that the blood spurting from its broken leg looked more like pesto sauce than actual sheep's blood. As the creature came under the effects of the sedative, the girls also seemed to calm and said that it was near sundown when they hit the creature that had been standing in the middle of the road by itself, stranded like a bush on the asphalt. Dr. Dubois took a sample of the green substance and an X-ray. When she took a closer look at the wound, she noticed that the typical black fur she was expecting was actually a dark green, and that the individual hairs were flat and wide, almost like blades of grass. As Dr. Dubois described it to her brother, it was as if the creature was an animal all the way down to the cells, where the molecular structure changed from animal to plant. She stopped the bleeding, stitched up the cut, and set the leg in a temporary stent while examining the X-ray. And at that point, there came another knock at the door. 2 men stood outside, and behind the girl's car was a large white van. The men wore big purple ponchos over purple polos. As they stood outside in the glow of the porch light, the shorter man, who had a bushy blonde mustache, asked if anybody had found a missing sheep. Apparently, the creature had escaped his enclosure outside of town, and they thought the best place to check was the local vet. When she stepped aside, the taller man practically jumped for joy and yelled, "Miss Sherry," before running up to the table and asking all the usual questions. What happened? What treatment had it received? Were there any risks? Dr. Dubois explained that the injury was not life-threatening and asked if the creature, now known as Miss Sherry, were a farm animal or a pet. The taller man said, believe it or not, she was an exhibit. Oh, I believe it. The shorter man rushed in at this point, said a very few quick things, and then informed the doctor that they had their own vet who could take care of the creature. She handed him a list of the medications she had applied, which he scoffed at, and then, with the help of Agent Dubois, they loaded the lamb into the white van. The girls, who talked to the taller man for a moment, said goodbye to Miss Sherry, and he thanked them for helping her. The van pulled away quickly into the night. The only identifiable characteristic of the van was a banner printed on the side of a moth or a butterfly. Dr. Dubois did not surrender the X-ray negative nor the blood sample she had taken. Closer study revealed that the cellular structure of the blood was indeed a strange form of plant cell with a thin cellular wall and missing vacuoles. Until the day he left the bureau, Jonathan said his sister insisted that the sheep was not an animal. They're telling tales about me now in Chicago? I thought I was keeping a better secret than this. Explains why the FBI is so freaking bad at all those cover-ups. The bureau is filled from California to Maine with a bunch of chatty Cathys. I'm getting a reputation, and I guess it's what I asked for, but here's the thing. It's a valid piece of the puzzle. Mysterious animal, butterfly logo, the director's personal men in purple. It's a water cooler story about an ex-coworker, but it's something. These people were looking for this thing, and you know what? One of them even seemed to care for it. I'll see if I can find anything about Dr. Dubois. If she's still got the blood sample, it might be something I can use. Oh, I forgot to thank Titanium for sending me those flash drives with the riddle case in it. By the way, thank you for sending me those flash drives. I had a laugh at the violet lining in the box. Okay, let's see. I think Felix sent me something else today. Now, where did I put it? Okay, so Felix sent me this one on top of the last file box from Dr. Van Zant's estate case. Said it was weird enough for me to like. Don't really know what that means, but like I said, I'm making a reputation, and it's not necessarily a good one. Case file 68-HQ-0138. Wait, What is 68? That's 68. That's contempt of court case, I think. Or, no, wait, that's 69, because everybody always snickers, because nice. What is 68? Alaskan Matters? What is Alaskan Matters? That's... Oh, it's obsolete, is what it is. July 7th, 1942. Special Agent Michael Heimberg. The Bureau and the Office of Strategic Services ran a joint investigation into the disappearance of Darcy Nightingale, an Alaskan bush pilot working for the post office. Concerns lie with the recent invasion of Attu and Kiska Islands, and that the... Whoa! This was written in 42. We cannot say that anymore. The concern is that the Japanese may have made their way further inland, up to Lake Iliamna. According to the locals at Kodiak Station, Darcy was the best pilot they'd ever seen, safest one too, and knew more about flying than any man they'd ever met. While I applaud their enthusiasm, God did not make... Okay, I don't need your misogynist commentary, Heimberg. Let's see. July 14th, we'd made our way overland to Kokonik and discovered the locals there had seen Nightingale's Piper J4 when she was scheduled to fly over on the last day of June. By their reports, she flew over the lake. OSS Agent O'Doul and I continued around the lake with our guide and came across some, Eskimos that reported seeing the plane was flying northwest toward Good News Bay, but the plane seemed to be in distress and that there was a gaping hole in the wing. July 24th, as we continued around the lake, we heard the distinctive sound of gunfire. We drew sidearms and headed for cover, but were surprised to see three, Japanese soldiers running from the tree line. We heard a sharp whistle, and the damnedest thing happened. From the edge of the forest came a massive beast, white in color, with an arched back and massive forearms. At first, I thought it was a polar bear, but then realized the proportions were all wrong. Its forearms were at least 10 foot long, and it walked on all fours, standing about 11 feet high with a long neck swinging from between the shoulders. It had a broad face with a dark muzzle and a black streak extending down and back from each eye toward the throat. Each hand was tipped with 3-foot-long claws and looked ready to use them. As the creature roared, I saw two more flanking it, and atop the one in the lead, standing in a harness made from mailbag straps and airplane upholstery, was Darcy Nightingale. Damn, Darcy. As the soldiers fled, we saw Darcy, flinging a rope around her head, lasso one of the men, and as she pulled him in, the creature she was riding slashed the man near in half with those long claws. We bolted from the tree line and pulled our guns on the remaining soldiers. Darcy gave out a whoop, and the big creatures stopped. O'Doul and myself tied up the remaining Japanese, while Darcy settled down her animals, whom she'd all named after Little Orphan Annie characters. She'd named her main one Sandy, the small one was Asp, and the big one was I'm not saying that either. O'Doul got some documents off the Japanese men. He knew a few words in Japanese, and was able to discern that the detachment was a scouting party for a larger force, and was expected to return with maps of the area at the end of the month. We returned immediately with Darcy Nightingale to report, but not before she did two things. First, she let her creatures go into the wild, and second, she collected the unopened mailbags from the crashed plane. There's some more about how Darcy said her plane was shot down, and how she found a herd of these big things, and they were very gentle. Then the soldiers killed one of the little ones, and the herd went ballistic. Oh, here's a drawing she did of... I know what this is. I fucking know what this is. This is a giant ground sloth. There's a prehistoric herd of giant ground sloths up in Alaska? Nobody ever calls my desk phone. Kespar, cold cases. Oh, Gideon. Yeah, I've got some information. Okay, that was bad. I thought I'd have more time. I've been investigating these cases since September, and I guess I just let the time slip away. I haven't completed much other work since then, and people are beginning to notice. If it wasn't for Kansas City dragging their heels again on the rest of that Spooklight report, I'd probably have more done. Something to at least test the waters with, but I need the evidence from that case to tie these things together. Okay, let me think. When Beckett came by at Halloween, I was working on that racketeering case in Rhode Island. I bet if I took another look at that, I can hand it in. I think I even got the DNA report back. Shit, was that before Thanksgiving? I don't even remember. Okay, one more case, then I'll set this stuff aside and take a look at the Rhode Island thing. This one is freaky. I haven't been able to listen to the entire thing. It's a recording from a missing persons case in Fresno, California from the mid-2000s. Her name was Siobhan Woolstonecraft. She was 27, she had just finished her master's in marketing, and she had a boyfriend named Josh that she absolutely fucking hated. She disappeared on an overcast night in May, and the only evidence we have as to what happened is the phone messages she left for Josh, who at least had the decency to report her missing. According to the FBI, she left willingly, but one of the investigating agents didn't like that answer and filed the case as unsolved. Message 1.
Okay, Josh, I was gonna write you a note, but I need you to hear the tone of my voice. You owe me that. Josh, we're through. We're done. It's over. You and I are no more. I know about Chastity. Ironic name, by the way. And you know what? I'm not even mad. I'm just happy that I don't have to be the bad guy and tell you I'm leaving you for the job in Boston. That's why I'm leaving, by the way. Have fun with your skank. I'm going to do what I love and get a new boyfriend that looks like Colin Farrell. And get filthy fucking rich.
Message 2.
You must not know about me. You must not know about me. I can have another you in a minute. In fact, he'll be here in a minute, baby. Oh, fuck. What the fuck was that?
Message 3.
Josh! Josh, goddammit, pick up! Josh, for once in your damn life, can you not be worthless? Where are my keys? Where? Oh no.
Message 4.
Josh, please pick up. There's this thing. It's like a big head with a pair of legs. Josh, please, I need help. I'm trapped in my car, and I can't find my keys, and it...
Message 5.
Josh, it's just me and my tire iron here. If I don't make it, I just want you to know. I always knew you were a fucking worm.
Message 6.
Oh, fuck, the windshield!
Message 7. Message 8.
Oh God, finally, the police. Help! Help! What the hell? What the hell just happened? Oh, fuck you.
Message 9.
You're just like my ex-boyfriend. You can't take a fucking punch!
Message 10.
Alright, I got one of the fuckers. I'm going after the second. Hey, who are you?
Congratulations on your innovation. Nightcrawlers are a particularly difficult creature to detain.
Night crawlers. They don't really crawl, though. They more saunter?
True, but Night Sashayer just doesn't have the same ring to it. Tell me, do you find your current life lacks meaning?
Maybe. Why? Are you offering me a job?
That's his fucking voice. I've heard it. That's the director. I mean, I haven't heard it before, but it's just like it was described in that Midwest mail bomber diary. And in that weird attempted autopsy thing in Massachusetts. And by that woman in Texas. It's creepy. I get why they all mentioned it. It's like hearing a ghost talk, or something you only half believed in. It's like meeting Santa Claus for the first time, but not like a mall Santa. Like the real Santa, but he's got a rap sheet stretching back to 1929. What does she mean she didn't send me those?
Zoo was created by CJ Housh, Connie Kitts, and Codi Phillips. The voice of McKayla Kespar is Connie Kitts. The voice of Siobhan Woolstonecraft is Jade Smith. The voice of Titanium Violet is Lucille Valentine. Original music by Nathan Gandy. We'd like to thank our Spooklight sponsors, Yzma Hecht and Lucille Valentine, and our Bigfoot benefactors, Paul Matteo and Matthew Staton. Have money? We don't. Go to patreon.com/zoopodcast. You can get access to a behind-the-scenes feed, blooper reels, early episodes, and other miscellaneous items based upon your contribution. Zoo fact. The Bandersnatch was discovered by a British mathematician in 1872. It can reach land speeds of up to 60 miles an hour and has an affinity for pulling small children and bankers through mirrors. Please remember to cover all reflective surfaces in the Bandersnatch enclosure.
The spirits told me to put a bunch of dumb shit everywhere.
Oh, the spirits told me to put some dumb shit in here, and maybe everybody I loved wouldn't die. Maybe I wouldn't die if I just put another fucking brick wall up.
Well, we're gonna put another garage on because the spirits are gonna kill Uncle Mike.